yesterday we had finished off, we were talking about judging favorably. B'tzedek tishpat amisecha, that you have to judge favorably. We were talking about, it's on page, what page is it? Page 660. So, by the way, when teachers teach in a classroom, it's like the first day of the year. Teachers say, let's say teaching 5th grade. So what you do is what teachers should do is you tell the kids, okay, guys, go and everybody sit down. And you let everybody go. All the kids go into the room and sit down. You have the teacher's desk is here, and all the kids take seats. You could assume that the smarter kids and the goody-goodies are all going to be sitting up front. And the less motivated are sitting towards the back. What you then do as a teacher is you pick up your chair and you move to that side of the room. And watch the expressions on the kids' faces when they're like the kids. You know. So, okay. The other thing you do as a teacher, by the way, is you never let, those of you who are going to become teachers, you never let a kid throw you off track. Like if a kid is making trouble, teachers and them will talk, a kid starts making trouble, throwing things. What you do is you continue talking as if nothing has happened, and you just walk over to the kid and take him by the arm. Continue talking. Just ignore the kid, as if he's not there. You just take him by the arm and open the door and just put him outside the door, and you've defeated him because he hasn't been able to rattle you. The worst thing is to get angry with the kid. He hasn't been able to rattle you and didn't disturb the class, so it doesn't pay for him crime doesn't pay. My son's a Rabbi now in a cheder. The problem is he can't touch kids. You can't pick up the kid. You just go like this or something, but you can't put your hand on the kid now. Because you get in all sorts of trouble. You name it, and somebody they get accused of this, that, or the other thing. You know, there are plenty. What do you call? I had a friend who was about 6'2" in 8th grade. He's a big, strong guy. And so eventually he was designing rockets, working for McDonnell Douglas, and eventually he worked for Israel Aircraft. So he was in St. Louis by McDonnell Douglas. It was and he was teaching on Sundays. He taught what's called Hebrew school. You know, in Hebrew school for secular kids who don't want to be there. Now this guy's a big, strong guy, and he was doing it just as a hobby. He didn't even need the money. He just enjoyed teaching. So he'd teach Sunday school. And so he told me one of the kids was giving him a hard time. Start right off the bat, kids start giving guy, was a wise guy. So he walked over to the kid's table. You know, they used to have these chair, table, desk combinations. He just walked right over to the table. He's a strong guy. The kid's sitting in his chair. He picked up the desk by the front 2 feet. He just lifted the desk up in the air like this. He looked at the kid like this. He didn't say a word. He just looked at the kid. Then he put the desk back down. He said the kid didn't say boo the rest of the year. Can't do that. Okay, so yesterday we were talking about donning lekav zchus. You have to judge people favorably. I once heard a story about this couple. A frum couple moved into a neighborhood, a young couple. And when they moved into the neighborhood, so he met this guy in shul, an older guy. He met this older guy in shul who befriended him, a guy in the 70s. He befriended this younger couple. So they invited him to the house for Shabbos, and they're a very nice older couple, you know, okay. So one day they invited the kids, the older couple back to their house. This young couple invited them for Shabbos. So they came for a Shabbos afternoon Shabbos meal. It's a documented incident. They came for a Shabbos meal. They finished the meal and they leave the house. And the husband, this young husband, he happened to go to the living room window and he sees that as they leave the house, he saw them flagging down a cab and getting in a cab and driving away in the middle of Shabbos. And he says to his wife, listen, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, they deceived us. I thought they were Shomer Shabbos. Now we ate in their house, and who knows what they served us. So he started giving they cut off the relationship. A few months later, this older man died. So the husband felt bad. He died, but they got to be, they'd cut off the relationship, but they still have to go be Menachem Avol. So he went to the house of mourning, and he's sitting there. And trying to break the ice, he said, was your husband sick? So the wife says to him, no, he wasn't sick at all. As a matter of fact, my husband was a physician. He was a doctor. And it actually started, the trouble started that Shabbos. We came to your house. As we left the house, he felt symptoms of a heart attack. And because he was a physician, he realized he has to get to the hospital. We actually flagged down a cab to get to the hospital, which is perfectly permissible on Shabbos. So you see, that's why sometimes you jump to a conclusion. And the conclusion could be then you end up with egg on your face. So you have to. That's the idea of done because it's done. We have to be realistic. If you see a guy we spoke about this yesterday. If you see a guy eating a cheeseburger and he's a big tzaddik, so then we said yesterday, so you have to judge him favorably. Maybe the guy has an ulcer attack, or maybe the guy didn't know he thought it was a parva burger, whatever it was. But if you see it's happening multiple times, you have to be realistic over here. You don't think, well, it's not really a hamburger. It's really a slice of pizza. It just looks like a cheeseburger. No, it's a cheeseburger. Now the question is, why is he eating the cheeseburger? So it has to be a certain level of being realistic here. Okay, take a look at the next pasuk. Lo sistes achicha bilvavecha. Don't hate your fellow in your heart. Page 6, 3 lines from the bottom. Sorry. I did. I skipped one. 4 lines from the bottom. Lo selech rachel ba'amecha. Do not go about as a talebearer among your people. Lo samod al dam re'echa. Don't stand on your fellow's blood. Ani Hashem. Okay, this is very important. So the first thing is, Lo selech rachel ba'amecha is not the prohibition of what we call rechilus. Now the difference between lashon hara and rechilus is lashon hara is if I go over to Hoodie and I tell Hoodie something negative about Israel, that's lashon hara. That's pure lashon hara la mahadrin mina mahadrin. That's lashon hara. If I go over to Hoodie and I say, Hoodie, Israel told me something about you. And then you go to Israel and you say, now that itself is probably rechilus. But then when you go to Israel, you say, Israel, Kaplan told me that you said about me this, that, the other. That's hardcore rechilus. Because now he's going to come back. Why did you tell him what I told you about him? And you have this vicious cycle of animosity and unpleasantness. That's rechilus. As opposed to lashon hara is I just go to A and tell him something negative about B. Rechilus is worse. Because rechilus causes, here, he doesn't know what I said to you about him, so that's the sort of thing that doesn't necessarily go further. Rechilus is where I tell you what somebody said about you, so then this triggers off this whole cycle. Or Kaplan said that you said that I said. They said, Kaplan, why did you say? Hoodie said that you said that I said, and we got a bunch of people all saying what other people said. That's rechilus. The reason it's called a rachel is a peddler. A rachel is a peddler, a guy who goes and he sells cosmetics. A guy goes from city to city selling cosmetics for women is called a rachel. And by the way, when Ezra HaSofer, when he led the Jews back to Eretz Yisrael after the first base of Mikdash to build the second base of Mikdash, he made 10. The Gemara says there were 10 takanos. Takanos means what do you call it?
Elders?
No. Elders is a Canaan. 10 takanos, 10 things that he instituted, 10 rules that he instituted in the land of Israel for resettling the land of Israel. One of those rules was a cosmetics peddler cannot be held out of town. That means if you have somebody who's got a cosmetics shop in town, then there's a visiting woman's cosmetic salesman comes to town, you haven't got a right to stop him from coming to town. Isn't that an interesting takana? No, but but it was only on cosmetics. It's only on cosmetics. If it would be a hardware store, he wouldn't be able to come in and sell nails in hardware stores. Only women's cosmetics. Why is that? Because women's cosmetics is vital. It's vital for a marriage. And especially when the Jewish people are coming back to Eretz Yisrael in a very small number of people, and they need to repopulate the Jewish people. So women have to be appealing to their husbands. That's a takana that Ezra HaSofer made. Ezra, who is considered, in certain ways, if Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have received the Torah, the Gemara says Ezra was on the level to receive the Torah. And what does he go and make a takana? He makes a takana that cosmetics peddlers could go into town. And so I'll get to 1 second. So cosmetics could come into town. So a rochil is a peddler. And the person who speaks rechilus, he's called a peddler because what you do is you go around peddling your wares from one place. Your gossip. You go from one place to another peddling your gossip. You go to one guy's house to find out what the latest hock is, or then you go to the next. There's always a guy in shul. You ever notice that in shul at the table where you take off the tefillin? So two guys are talking. Reuven and Shimon are talking. I say, yeah, did you hear what happened? Then there's that third guy who's pretending not to listen. He's like, this is good stuff. Or he's putting away his tefillin, pretending, making every effort not to look, and he's hearing every single word. And that's what rechilus is. So the Torah says, look now look at the connection in the pasuk over here. The Torah says, the Torah says, Lo selech rachel ba'amecha, don't go about as a talebearer. Lo samur adam reyecha, and don't stand by idly when your brother is you're on your brother's blood. And Rashi gives an example. Let's say you see a fellow Jew being accosted by ruffians, or he's getting mugged, or he's getting dragged off into the forest by a wild animal. So the halacha is you can't stand by idly. You have to do what you can to save him. Now, there's a limitation on that. The limitation on that is that if you know for a fact that you're going to die, then you're not allowed to get involved. If a guy is being dragged off by a grizzly bear, and all you have as a weapon is a toenail clippers, don't get involved. Don't get involved. It's not going to be good. Then the grizzly bear is just going to have a double portion for lunch. Right? They're not going to help. They're not going to help. They used to have that in Reader's Digest all the time. Did you guys ever read Reader's Digest? Reader's Digest was considered the kosher magazine. So they used to have one section called Drama in Real Life. And it was always about, what I called it is how stupid people to get into really bad situations. They had drama in real life. This guy is, alone, trapped on a glacier with nothing but a bagel, and how he survived. What are you doing in a glacier anyway? Where are you anywhere near glaciers? You should be in a library. What are you doing in the glaciers, right? Or some days, I remember one story with this couple is walking through the forest, and the girl gets accosted by a grizzly bear, and he's trying to fight her off, with his compass or something, or with his can opener. What are you doing anywhere near grizzly bears? That was called drama in real life. I remember one of them was this woman is with her baby on a ski lift, and a 4-month-old baby on a ski lift, and the ski lift malfunctioned in midair. They're trapped in midair with a 4-month-old baby. And I remember because my wife we read this, and my wife was upset with me because I bought the Reader's Digest, so it's my fault that this lady, what's she doing up on the ski lift with a 4-month-old baby? I said, I don't know. She said, you don't get on a ski lift with a baby. I don't know, I just bought the magazine. Well, you don't get on, it was my fault. That was called drama in real life. So if you know, the halacha says, if you know you're going to die, the classic example is somebody's drowning. And you don't have, so if you have a long pole or a rope or something, so you obviously do what you can. If you're trained in saving, in life saving, so you dive in and save it. If you're not trained in life saving, you don't try and dive into the water, all that's going to happen is you're both going to drown. So it's interesting. It's the only place in halacha that's, now listen what the halacha says. The halacha says, if you know you're going to die, you don't get involved, but don't think about it too much. The halacha actually says that. Because if you think about it, you're never going to get involved. So where that line of how much to think about it is, I'm not sure. Where that line is, I'm not sure. But if there's a chance, the line is, if you have a chance of saving the guy's life, even if you might die, you have to try, because he for sure is going to die if you don't. That's Allah. That's lo samur adam reyecha. Don't stand idly by for others. What are you going to ask, Israel?
Well, my question was more like this. If God wanted so badly Jewish people to populate, why he just didn't make women beautiful? Why he made cosmetics?
I haven't got an answer. The deep philosophical question, and I haven't got the Gemara actually says that in the Durham, the Gemara says Jewish women, Jewish girls are beautiful. It's just that poverty makes them look bad. That's what the Gemara says. Because there's an incident with one of the girls who a husband didn't want to he didn't want to marry her because there's a girl that a man didn't want to marry because she was unattractive. So Rabbi Yishmael, I think it was Rabbi Yishmael, he beautied her up, and when he said to the husband and the man, they had made a netter that he wouldn't marry. He says, "Is this the girl that you had in mind?" He said, "No." He goes, "Okay, then you can marry her," because he changed it. And then the Gemara says that it's not that they're really inherently beautiful. It's just that the poverty. I don't know if it means that they can't afford things or the poverty means that it eats away at them. But the Gemara means exactly. Obviously, some are more attractive than others, but that's what the Gemara. Okay, now in this halacha, lo samar adam riyacha, it's the only time that I know that halacha says don't think about it too much, because otherwise you'll figure out why not to get involved. So actually, I want to tell you two incidents, both true. Well, one of them actually in our neighborhood. There's a woman in our neighborhood who was at a shear, but Shabbos afternoon there was a woman's shear, and all of a sudden she looks over and she sees, because her house was about 100 yards away from the shul, and she looks over, she sees black smoke coming out of her window. So they go running to her house, and everybody, I think the couple had 10 kids. Everybody's basically accounted for except their 10-year-old son. I don't know where their 10-year-old son is. There's a guy standing outside who was an Israeli. He was in the Israeli army. He was one of the commandos. This guy had actually been. Do you remember 1976? There was a raid in Entebbe. Yeah. He was in that raid in Entebbe. He was top of the line. There's a famous picture. Have you ever seen pictures of the raid on Entebbe? There's a famous picture where they're loading on the black limousine. Yeah. And there are three guys who are turning around looking back inside the black Mercedes. He's one of those guys. Today he's a Rosh Kollel. We became a Baal Tshuva, but he was one of those guys. Now he was standing outside, and somebody asked him, "Can you go in and see if can you go?" He said, "I can't go in there. I can't go in there. I got there's black smoke coming out. There's another guy standing there who is absolutely the least likely person that you would think to be a hero. Think of Woody Allen with a haircut, right? And this guy, his house had the same basic design. So he put a wet towel over his head and he just went into this house, flailing his arms around. He didn't even know what he was looking for. And he happened to hit this 10-year-old kid who was sleeping and taking a Shabbos nap, knocked him off the bed, and the two of them got out. Now, do you go in that situation or not? I really don't know. I don't know, because he was a Baruch Hashem. They both got out. Saved the kid's life. That was the first incident. But the first guy said, "I can't go in," and you can't blame a guy. The black smoke coming out of a thing. The chances of survival are probably very, very slim. I really don't know. But the halacha says that you don't think about it too much. Then there was another incident here in Israel. There was a Hasidish cheder. And the bus driver, you ever see these Hasidish bus drivers driving the cheder? Okay, so this Hasidish guy, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call from his mother, living in Mea Shearim. He gets a phone call from his mother that she saw an Arab putting something in one of the garbage pails, and it looked very suspicious, one of the public dumpsters. So this guy happened to be in the bus, so he drives over, and he opens up the bus, he opens up the garbage dumpster, and sure enough, there's a booby-trapped briefcase in there, and he opens up this briefcase, and there's a bomb in the briefcase, and so he fiddles with the wires, and he detaches one of the wires. Apparently, this guy worked in an electronics shop, so he knew something about how wiring works. So he detaches this wire. Within 30 seconds, the police had come. They take a look at what's going on, and all of a sudden they hear like a click. The Arab tried to activate this bomb, but this guy had detached the wire. So the police said, and this is a very condensed area of Mea Shearim. If you've ever been into Mea Shearim, there are three levels in Mea Shearim: condensed, more condensed, and most condensed. So this is an extremely condensed area in Mea Shearim. The police said if this bomb would have gone off, it could have had 200 casualties. So I was in a car, and I hear this lady on the Israeli news is trying to interview this Hasidish guy. Now, these Hasidish guys, nothing really moves them. And she goes, she's all excited. She goes, Do you know that you save a lot of lives? That's what they say. I mean, weren't you nervous about maybe this thing would blow up in your house? Not really. She couldn't get the guy to react. You said about it. So what were you thinking? Said, I saw wires. I pulled out the wire. That's a samor adam reacha. Now, what's the connection to the first part of the pasuk? Here's your connection, Israel. It first says, Lo selech rachel ba'amecha, lo samor adam reacha. Don't stand on your fellow's blood. Two connections here. So if you're Yeruchel Nevovitz, any idea? What's the connection?
But when someone is producing gossip, it's like he's shedding the blood.
Excellent. You can be killing people with gossip. Excellent. You kill people. Rav Yeruchel Nevovitz was the Mashiach Lemir Yeshiva. He said when he would walk by some guys, Yeshiva Bachrim, and they're sitting around talking Lashon Hara, to him, they looked like a bunch of cannibals with blood running down their cheeks. They're killing someone. A bunch of guys are sitting around gossiping about it. 5 guys are talking about a 6th guy. He said it looks to them like they're cannibals with blood oozing down their cheeks. He said the only difference between them and cannibals is cannibals wait till the victim is dead. Rucham said. By the way, this guy told me, that same guy who was in the Israeli, in the Marine, who today is a Rosh Kolel, he told me that a friend of his, he had a brother, an Israeli friend of his, had a brother who went traveling. Israelis do that, after they finish the army, they go traveling all over the world. You've probably met them. If you go to Tibet, you'll certainly meet them. And if you go to anywhere in the world, you'll meet Israelis. And he said one of his friend's brothers went traveling somewhere in Central America, and they never heard from him again, and there was speculation that he was eaten by cannibals. That's what he said. One of these primitive Central American places. So it exists. But Rabbi Yerucham said these guys are worse than cannibals, because at least cannibals wait till the guy's dead. Just spilling his blood while he's alive. That's one connection. There's another connection here. The other connection is sometimes, let's say you hear somebody plans on harming somebody else. Now you're a really firm guy. You say, well, I'd like to tell Reuven that Shimon is planning on busting him up. But you know what? I better not, because it says, Lo selech rachel ba'amecha. I don't want to speak rechilus. That's misguided frumkeit. That's misguided frumkeit. Lo selech rachel ba'amecha, but lo samar adam reacha. If somebody planning on hurting somebody, so don't stand by idly. Go make sure you tell the guy. Don't what do you call it? There is such thing as misguided frumkeit. The story, this anti-Semite stops a Jew on the street and says, Jew, I'm going to kill you. Do you have any last words you'd like to say before I shoot you? So, before a person dies, Al Kiddush Hashem, so there's a bracha you make. So he says, yeah, I do as a bracha. This guy looks and says, you're a nut. I'm not going to waste a bullet on you. Going, no. That's what we call misguided frumkeit.
Did he get shot?
No. Okay, now take a look at the next one. This is the main one I want to get to today. Hocheach tochiach es amisecha. You must rebuke your fellow man. You must rebuke your fellow man. Velosisa olav chet, but do not get tagged with an avera when you rebuke him. You must rebuke people, but don't make sure you don't get an avera. Now, this is a very broad subject. We're going to spend some time on this. The first idea here is like this. When you think of rebuke, the word rebuke in English is a very, very harsh word. The word rebuke is a very harsh word. Because the word rebuke conjures up an image of, really getting in someone's face. That's what rebuke sounds like. It sounds like. I'm going to rebuke him. The word hocheach tocheach, most accurately, hocheach tocheach comes from words. There's a pasuk that says, Shifchi kamayim libech, pour out your heart, nochach pnei Hashem, in front of Hashem. Pour out your heart in front of Hashem. The word nochach and hocheach are related to each other. That means when you want to correct somebody, the best and most efficient way of correcting somebody is by hocheach, tocheach, place this person, nochach, in front of himself. That means for you, this is inappropriate. A person like you doesn't do this. And that's the best way, by the way. If you ever have to correct your kids, that's the best way. Say, somebody like you could do better. Because your daughter walks in with an outfit. Daddy, is this outfit sneeze enough? I think someone like you could upgrade it a bit. And what you've done is you've built the person up while you're correcting them. You're building them up. Someone like you, I think someone like you could do better. I just had to do this. There's a kid in shul. I've been davening in a certain shul. There's a very nice kid, and I noticed every single day he's been coming to davening, and he looks like a serious boy. Every single day he comes to davening. No, it's coming late. It's coming late. Coming late is coming to Ashrei, maybe around Yishtabach time. This kid's about 14, 13 years old. Every single day I notice he's coming in at Kriya Shema. So I waited. I wasn't sure. I debated it in my mind for about 2-3 days. Should I say something, not say something, let his parents say something, he's in Cheder, let his Rebbe say something. I went back and forth with it. And I was really going, I should say something or not. And if it was the type of kid that, looks like anyway he's not interested, I wouldn't say anything. He looked like a sweet kid. So yesterday I said to him, right after davening, I said to him, you look like you're a serious kid. You look like you're a serious kid. Coming in a Kriya Shema, that's not the way we do it. Somebody like you could do better. That's it. He gave a big smile. And I left. I didn't say anything. Last night, I walked into the shul. There he was learning with his chavrusa. Very, very well. I walked up to the kid. I said, see, I told you you're a high-caliber kid. It's again a big smile. So then I davened in the shul this morning. He came in at Kriya Shema this morning again. Here, I thought I was doing so well. He came in at Kriya Shema again. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, because today was Rosh Chodesh, because it's a long davening anyway. He didn't want to torture himself too much. But I didn't say anything. I said it once. That's it. He heard me. I said it once. So the first thing is hocheach tocheach. Number one is by showing a person what your potential is. Number one. Number two, the statement in the Gemara. Rabbi Tarfon says there's no one in our generation who knows how to take rebuke. Rabbi Tarfon says, the Gemara says, Rabbi Tarfon says, no one in our generation knows how to accept rebuke. If you say to somebody you have a splinter between your teeth, he'll say to you, yeah, well, you've got a big, thick crossbeam between your eyes. What's the Gemara telling you? Most people, if you correct me, you tell me that I'm doing something wrong, I'm just a lash out at you. And then Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that nobody, not only knows how to receive rebuke, nobody knows how to give rebuke. Nobody knows how to give rebuke. So what is the most efficient way? One of the suggestions is include yourself. That's why it says, take a look at the pasuk. It's in the words of the pasuk. Hocheach tocheach es hamisecha v'lo sisa olav chet. Now, the plain meaning is that you shouldn't get saddled with an avera when you rebuke him. Now, what that means on the plain level means that if I give you musar, if I correct you in front of other people and I embarrass you, then I'm getting an avera. That's not how you correct people. And not only that, there's an opinion that even one-on-one, if I correct you to the point that your face turns color because you're embarrassed, then even then it's an appropriate rebuke. So it's got to be, you got to know who you are and who's on the receiving end. But no one ever minds if I say, if you correct yourself, lo sisa olav chet, don't peg the avera on him. In other words, you go over to somebody, I found, people ask all the time, we get into an unpleasant situation, somebody starts telling you Lashon Hara, and you really don't want to hear it. If you say to the guy, that's Lashon Hara, you can't say that, that's Lashon Hara. When you say it with aggressively, and you kind of point it at the other guy, it's not received well. I found that the best thing to do when somebody's speaking Lashon Hara, I say to the guy, listen, I've been talking about people a little too much lately. Maybe let's change the subject. So what have I done? I've blamed myself. That everybody's willing to let you do. Everybody's willing to let you blame yourself. That's fine. No, nobody objects if you blame yourself. So it's got to be with a lot of tact, and it's not always the right time to say it. And parents especially have to be very, very careful here. When to correct their kids and how to correct their kids. It's a very, very tricky thing because parents, somebody once said, when you're raising teenagers, keep one eye closed. When you're raising kids, shut one eye, but keep your second eye wide open. It's work. It's not easy. It's not easy. You can't. But now, you know when you don't correct people? When you really feel like correcting them. That's when you don't correct them. Boy, I'm going to tell him off. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Don't tell people off when you feel like telling people off. It's got to be that it's coming from. And people can tell. Where's it really coming from? That's why. Now watch what follows. Here's your connection again. Look at the next pasuk. Lo sikom v'lo sitor es b'nei amecha. Do not. What do you call it? Lo sikom v'lo sitor. Don't take revenge. What's the connection between taking revenge and this pasuk? We'll talk about what revenge is in a second, but what's the connection between not taking revenge and hochech tochech zamisecha? By the way, if anybody's interested, we have there's the Parsha review, which is a few pages on things that we've spoken about this week. Some of the things we haven't spoken about this week, but it's ideal for the Shabbos table. We also have, for anybody who's interested, the Shidduch investigation questions for parents who are looking to investigate shidduchim for their kids. There are 48 questions over here for to help you ask what questions to ask, how to ask the questions, and as a guide for other questions that you should be asking. So if anybody's interested in either of these, you can email me at Dovid B. Kaplan. B as in, boy, are the White Sox bad. Right? Dovid B. Kaplan. Baseball, basketball, badminton, and boy, are the White Sox bad. Yeah, busted bridges in Baltimore. Yeah, but that were let them fix the bridge. I'm happier about the White Sox. So the White Sox are worse than the bridge. So the what do you call it? That is what's the connection here?
The connection, you most likely to have grudge against people you love.
And you veered off right at the end. Let's see, you didn't have to add that in. Let's see, don't take revenge. When are you likely to give somebody a rebuke? Wait, I'm looking at you. You did something to me. Now I finally got my chance to fix you. Watch this. Hey, I noticed that you forgot to bench. No, that felt good. Right? This guy got me yesterday on a Lashon Hara. I got him today. That felt good. A little payback. I got burned so bad. I came home. This was in the early days when I was married. So by nature, I was kind of confrontational. But of course, now I'm not. I'm a tzaddik now. But by then, back in the day, I was very confrontational. My wife is completely non-confrontational. She'll walk away from any confrontation. She's walked away from me many times. So I came home from shul. This is the early days when I was married. And I came home from shul. I said to my wife, I had a confrontation in shul. She said to me, what happened? I said, well, two guys were talking. I told them they shouldn't be talking, and they got upset, and we had a confrontation. So she said to me, what else don't you like about them? I said, what do you mean? They were talking. She goes, yeah, but if there was a good friend of yours, you wouldn't have said anything. Ooh, did that hurt? Ooh, did that hurt? Because she was right. She's absolutely right. Because there's usually, yeah, I got to give them a good stuck over there. Okay? Even more than that. Take a look at 3 lines from the bottom. The rebuke begins, now this is extremely important. Lo sisna es achicha bilvavecha. Don't hate him in your heart. So the plain meaning here is, if you got a beef with somebody, you don't always have to go work it and say something, but don't be two-faced. Don't pretend everything's okay. Yosef's brothers are praised because the Torah says, Lo yochlu dablo shalom, they couldn't speak to Yosef civilly. So they didn't speak to him at all. But they didn't pretend everything's okay. Hi, Yosef, how are you this morning? No, they didn't talk at all. So Yosef knew they resented him. Don't be two-faced. That's lo sisach bilvavecha. You got a problem with somebody. Sometimes you should talk to him about it. Sometimes let it go someday. But don't pretend that everything's okay. We have to work on ourselves to not hate people. Lo sisnes achicha bo, try not to hate people. That we have to work on. But if you do, don't keep it in your heart and pretend everything. If it's really there in your heart, So then, a cold war. But don't be two-faced. But there's another idea here which I find is very, very applicable. Some people are very good-hearted people. You're just a good-hearted people. So, for example, you're the guy who, if you see papers on the floor, you'll pick it up. You feel it's wrong that there should be papers on the floor. Then you see somebody else who's not doing it, and you hold it against him. So the Torah is saying, Lo sisna es achicha, don't hate other people, bilvavecha, because you happen to have a good heart, or you happen to be focused in a certain area. You know where this is very common? This is very common when you volunteer to do something. A person volunteers. And so let's say I volunteered let's say all the chairs have to be cleaned up. Let's say there was construction in here and the chairs are filthy and they got to be wiped down. It's not my job. And I volunteered to do it. And I start wiping down the chairs. And two guys come into the room and two guys sit down and they start learning or they start schmoozing and say, hey guys, don't you see the chairs need to be wiped down? What are you getting upset for? Who asked you to do it? You want to do it, so go ahead and do it. Well, you can't impose it on other people because you're volunteering for something, so all of a sudden you've decided what everybody else should do. And sometimes people come to you, they have mitzvahs for you to do. I have my mitzvahs. I don't thank you very much. Don't. So losistas achicha bilvavecha means that you happen to be good-hearted in a certain area. Well, don't resent other people because they're not like you. It's very common. I've seen this all the time. Very, very common. I heard once about a yeshiva where there was a yeshiva, the boys had to eat supper or something for Shabbos. I don't remember what the situation was. So one of the boys went into the kitchen and he saw that things weren't ready. So he went in and he started peeling potatoes and started peeling vegetables. And a couple other guys came into the lunchroom and he got very, very, very agitated with it. Hey guys, don't you see we need help over here with the... Hey, 1 second, nobody's paying you. One of the Rabbeim saw him. He came over and he says, listen, Ruvain, don't be such a, what do you call it? Nobody asked you want to do it, but you can't tell other people. You certainly shouldn't be getting upset with other people. You can ask them if they'd like to help, but don't get upset with them. Just because you happen to be good-hearted in a certain area doesn't mean everybody else has to have that same, and I see this all the time. All the time. Okay, now, let's talk about revenge. Let's get some revenge. By the way, when are you allowed to hate somebody? According to some, it's a mitzvah to hate them. Huh? When they desecrate the Torah. Somebody does an avera. Now, let's say somebody does a real bad avera, and you only see him alone. So if two people see, so two witnesses, then you go to Beis Din. Tell Beis Din, this guy stole or this guy did something. If one person sees, you're not allowed to go to Beis Din because one witness doesn't do any good. But you're allowed to hate him if you've seen him sin. But we're talking about a bad sin, and we're talking about a regular flagrant sinner. Why does the Torah allow you to hate him? Why does the Torah allow you to hate him? So they shouldn't have an effect on you. The Torah says you have to hate him in order that it should have, if I hate this guy, his avera, human nature is sometimes when you do an avera, it has a negative effect. We see other people doing an avera, it has an effect on us. See cars driving on Shabbos. Oh, maybe it's not so bad to drive on Shabbos. You have to be bothered by it. Not because of them, you have to be bothered by it so it doesn't affect us. I heard about a great Hasidic Rabbi who was standing on a balcony in Yerushalayim. It's Shabbos. He sees all the cars are driving. And as each car drove, he yelled, Mazel Tov. So somebody said, why are you yelling Mazel Tov? He says, listen, if cars are driving on Shabbos, Jews are driving on Shabbos, obviously there's a woman who needs to give birth. They have to drive her to the hospital on Shabbos. Mazel Tov. Giving them the benefit of the doubt. Right? Listen, let's be realistic. On the other hand, it's an interesting insight. So you think it's how to view people. You don't have to. Jews, the same guy who's so aggressive about correcting people, he should be just as aggressive about his complimenting and encouraging people. How come that we don't hear from you? That we don't hear from you. That we only hear complaints. People write into the newspaper about, I write a column I read a column for every few weeks for the Hamodia newspaper. Sometimes people will write in, Kaplan wrote this, wrote that, something bad. Once in a while you get a compliment. Most of the what he calls are negative. Why are you saying it? How come you didn't write in a compliment? Not that I'm looking for the compliments, which I am, but not that I'm looking for the compliment. But that's human nature. When people call me up, I've written a couple of books, so I'll get an email. You made a mistake on this. That's the only thing you found. You read 200 pages, all you can find is a mistake on page 117. There was nothing good about the book for you to say. So that's the idea of what you call it. Now, lo sikam v'lo sitar b'nei amecha v'havta l'recha kamocha ani Hashem. What is the difference between lo sika? One is not to take revenge, and the other is not to bear a grudge. So Rashi gives the classic example. I come over to your house to borrow your lawnmower, and you won't lend it to me. And the next day, you come over to my house to borrow the drill. I say, no, you didn't lend me the lawnmower. I'm not lending you the drill. That's revenge. That's revenge. A guy cut you off. We had an Israeli guy once. I was a kid. This Israeli guy was visiting in Chicago. So he was a friend of the family. So this guy, he had been in the army, he was on his trip, he comes by, so he stayed by our house, he came to our house. So my dad, all of a sudden, he says to him, can I say a question? Why do they drive the way they do in Israel? How can they drive the way they do? I remember this guy says, listen, he's laughing, the guy's laughing, he goes, listen, if I'm driving and a guy passes me up, I have to pass him up back. And he'll drive 12 kilometers out of the way till you finally pass him up. I got to pass him up. That's revenge. My brother, my younger brother, so he was once eating an orange, I think. He was eating an orange and an apple. So I walked up. He was at the kitchen table. So I walked up behind him, and I flicked his ear real hard. So he gets up, and he starts chasing me around the house. I am king chicken. So I go running, and he had me cornered, and his fist was up. So I decided to appeal to his religious sensitivities. I said, you can't hit me. He said, why not? I said, it's revenge. So he goes, it's not revenge. I'm starting from new. It's revenge. It's revenge by any other word. That's revenge. What's lo sitor? Lo sitor, you can't bear a grudge. That means when you come to borrow the drill, I can't say to you, listen, I'm not like you who didn't lend me the lawnmower. See, I am lending you my drill. That's lo sitor. That means I'm bearing the grudge in my heart. So the Torah says you're not allowed to do either of them. And sometimes people will say, this. When this happens often? By invitations. Somebody's making a wedding. And say, well, we're not going to invite the Goldsteins because they didn't invite us to their wedding. And which just means that obviously they don't consider us friends, so if they're not friends, so why invite them? That's called revenge. With all the, all the Gemara logic. At the end of the day, with fetching with the thumb, but at the end of the day, it's revenge. That's the idea. So the Torah says you're not allowed to. Why do you need to take revenge? Why? It's called sweet revenge. Even the Mesilas Yesharim, the older talks about revenge and says, there's nothing as sweet as revenge. Why? Why do we need to take revenge? What's the thing? The answer is that revenge is usually because you feel somebody wronged you. And it rankles. And I have no way to get it out of my system. So what do? I turn around. The only way that I could soothe that pain is by doing something, feeling that I've gotten back at you. Because I've been either insulted or you messed me up some way. The only way that I could possibly, is that I have to get back at you somehow. Now, last point. Look at Rashi. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha ani Hashem. Take a look at Rashi. I'll show you something fascinating here. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha ani Hashem. Where's Rashi? Bottom line, left column, bottom line. Last line on the page of Rashi. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you should love your fellow man as yourself. Amar Rabbi Akiva, Zek klal b'gadol b'Torah. This is a fundamental principle in Torah. Love your fellow man as yourself. That's very interesting that Rabbi Akiva said this. Now, I noticed this. I didn't have the question. I don't have the answer, but I did notice the irony. The Gemara in Bab Betzia says, if two guys are in the desert, Reuven and Shimon are in the desert. You know the famous case? Reuven has a canteen, and he's got water. Shimon and Reuven are in the desert. Reuven has a canteen. If they both drink from the canteen, neither of them is going to make it out of the desert. They're both going to die. If Reuven keeps the water for himself, Shimon's going to die, and Reuven's going to make it to get to the nearest town. What's the halacha? So one opinion in Gemara is, no, you got to share it. You can't watch the other guy die. Says Rabbi Akiva, you keep the water for yourself. Why? Chayecha kodmim. Your life comes first. Well, how do you reconcile with V'ahavta l'recha kamocha? The same Rabbi Akiva says, to love your fellow man yourself is a klal gadol b'Torah. The same Rabbi Akiva says, you keep the canteen. How do you reconcile the two? Good question, right? So I saw one of the first says like this. When it comes to your own deeds, obviously you come before you. If I only have one sandwich, and we're both hungry, I can't give you the sandwich. If I have two sandwiches and I want both, I could give you one and I'll eat a little bit less. But if one, my life comes first. Well, that's when it comes to physical needs. When it comes to zek klal gadol b'Torah, in spiritual needs, you should be willing to help somebody else. Even if you feel, I'm not going to learn with a weaker guy, I could be learning by myself and making more progress. But a weaker guy needs help. Somebody needs to be educated. I don't have the patience to start telling this guy how to keep Shabbos. Zek klal gadol b'Torah. When it comes to spiritual needs, you have to make sure that you're willing to help other people. You have to view other people, even if it means that my own progress may not go increase the way I'd like it to. You have to be willing to help somebody else, but they do need your help. So when Rabbi Akiva says, Zek klal gadol, when is it? B'Torah, when it comes to Torah teaching, and when it comes to spiritual pursuits, ruchni pursuits, Zek klal gadol b'Torah. When it comes to the physical, I can't. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha doesn't mean I got to give you my wallet. I don't have to give you my wallet. That's ridiculous. You want my money. Why? V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. That's not what it doesn't include that. That's ridiculous. But if I can certainly share, you can certainly try to help people physically, but you don't have to give away your property. You said, this guy's homeless, so I should move out of my house and let the homeless guy move in. That's ridiculous. But when it comes to helping people to grow as Jews, that we have to be willing to do. All right. What do you call it? We call it sweet revenge. But what do you call it? Just remember, 10 after 12. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Israel.